The detention cell reeked of alien sweat and fear. Marcus Chen sat in the corner, his back against the cold metal wall, watching his captors through half-closed eyes. The Zephyrians had made a mistake when they grabbed him from Earth's outer colony on Kepler 442b. They thought they had captured just another soft human colonist, someone they could break easily for information about Earth's defense systems. The lead interrogator, a towering blue-skinned creature named Vextar, stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 muscular arms and razor-sharp claws. His species had conquered 17 worlds through sheer brutality and intimidation. Behind him, 3 other Zephyrians lounged against the wall, their yellow eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. "Look at this pathetic creature," Vextar hissed, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "Humans are supposed to be the galaxy's newest threat? This one looks like he would break if I breathed on him too hard." Marcus remained silent, his breathing steady and controlled. He had been captured 3 days ago during a routine supply run to the outer settlements. The Zephyrians had ambushed his transport, killing his escort and dragging him aboard their ship. They wanted information about Earth's military installations, troop movements, and defensive capabilities. What they didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just a supply coordinator. Before joining the colonial service, Marcus had spent 15 years training in Muay Thai, in the underground fighting circuits of Bangkok, and later in the military special forces. His lean frame and quiet demeanor had always been his greatest advantages. Opponents consistently underestimated him, seeing only what appeared to be an average-sized human with calloused hands and a few small scars. "Perhaps our guest needs some encouragement to speak," suggested Crixmole, one of the younger Zephyrians. His claws extended with a metallic scraping sound. "I could remove a few fingers. Humans are quite attached to their digits." Vextar's laugh was like grinding metal. "An excellent idea, but let's start with something simpler." He activated his pain inducer, a device that sent electrical shocks through neural pathways. "Tell us about Earth's fleet positions, human, or this will become much more unpleasant." The device hummed to life, sending waves of agony through Marcus's nervous system. His muscles tensed, but he didn't cry out. Instead, he focused on his breathing, using meditation techniques learned during years of intense training. Pain was just another sensation, another obstacle to overcome. "Impressive," Vextar admitted after several minutes. "Most species are screaming by now. But you will break eventually." "They always do." The interrogation continued for hours. The Zephyrians took turns with different torture devices, each designed to cause maximum pain without permanent damage. They wanted their prisoner functional enough to provide useful information. Marcus endured it all in silence, his mind retreating to the training halls of his youth, remembering the voice of his instructor, Master Somchai. "The body can be broken, Marcus, but the spirit is unbreakable unless you choose to surrender it. Pain is temporary. Honor is eternal." As the artificial day cycle dimmed, the Zephyrians grew frustrated. Their prisoner had not spoken a single word, despite hours of torture. Vextar dismissed 2 of his subordinates, leaving only Crixmole as a guard. "Tomorrow we try different methods," Vextar announced. "Perhaps we'll bring in one of the human females we captured on Proxima Station. Humans form emotional attachments. Watching her suffer might loosen his tongue." Marcus's eyes opened fully for the first time since the interrogation began. The threat against innocent people struck something deep inside him, igniting a cold fury he had learned to control but never eliminate. His fingers unconsciously curled, muscle memory returning as he visualized the combinations and techniques that had made him a champion in the underground circuits. The Zephyrians had made their first real mistake. They thought they understood human psychology, but they had misjudged their prisoner completely. Marcus wasn't just any colonist, and he wasn't going to remain passive much longer. Crixmole settled into a chair near the cell door, his weapon resting across his lap. The young warrior was confident in his abilities and the strength of the containment field. Humans were weak, everyone knew that. They had no natural weapons, no enhanced strength or speed, no armored hide. What could one injured human possibly do against a trained Zephyrian warrior? Marcus shifted slightly, testing the range of motion in his limbs. The torture had stiffened his muscles, but the damage was mostly superficial. His hands and feet, the primary weapons of Muay Thai, were still functional. The Zephyrians had been careful not to damage his extremities too severely, wanting to preserve his ability to operate computer interfaces when they finally broke his will. That consideration would prove to be their downfall. The detention cell's force field was designed to prevent escapes and contain dangerous prisoners. But it had one weakness the Zephyrians didn't consider. The field could be temporarily disrupted by a precise electromagnetic pulse, something that could be generated by the right combination of movements and the friction between human skin and the cell's metal fixtures. Marcus had learned about this vulnerability during his military service, where human prisoners of war had developed techniques to escape alien detention systems. It required perfect timing, incredible physical conditioning, and knowledge that most species didn't possess about human bioelectricity. As Cricksmall dozed in his chair, Marcus began the slow process of preparation. He controlled his breathing, slowing his heart rate and focusing his energy. His muscles coiled like springs, ready to unleash 15 years of deadly training on his unsuspecting captors. The Zephyrians had taunted the wrong human. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous predators were those who looked like prey. The electromagnetic pulse generated by Marcus's carefully calculated movements sent a brief ripple through the detention cell's force field. For exactly 2.3 seconds, the barrier flickered and died. To most beings, that window would have been useless, barely enough time to register what had happened. Marcus Chen was not most beings. He exploded from his meditation pose like a coiled viper, his body moving with fluid precision that came from decades of training. Cricksmall's eyes snapped open just as Marcus's heel connected with his throat in a devastating teep kick, the signature push kick of Muay Thai. The impact crushed the Zephyrian's windpipe and sent him flying backward, his weapon clattering across the floor. Before Cricksmall could even hit the wall, Marcus was already in motion. The years of conditioning had taught him to chain techniques together seamlessly, using the momentum from one strike to power the next. His shin connected with Cricksmall's ribs in a brutal roundhouse kick, the sound of breaking bone echoing through the chamber like snapping timber. Cricksmall tried to cry out for help, but only a wet wheeze escaped his damaged throat. His forearms flailed wildly, claws extended, but Marcus flowed around the attacks like water. This was the beauty of Muay Thai. It wasn't just about power, but about timing, distance, and turning an opponent's strength against them. A sharp elbow strike caught Cricksmall in the temple, followed immediately by a knee to his solar plexus. The Zephyrian doubled over, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Marcus grabbed the alien's head with both hands, positioning it perfectly before driving his knee upward with devastating force. The impact lifted Cricksmall completely off his feet. The entire encounter lasted less than 30 seconds. Cricksmall collapsed in an unconscious heap, his breathing shallow but stable. Marcus had been precise in his violence, enough force to neutralize the threat without killing. He needed information, and dead guards couldn't provide answers. Marcus quickly searched Cricksmall's equipment, finding access cards, a personal communicator, and most importantly, a detailed map of the ship's layout. The vessel was a Zephyrian heavy cruiser called the Bone Crusher, with over 300 crew members and multiple levels of security. Getting to the human prisoners would require stealth, timing, and a considerable amount of violence. The corridor outside the detention block was empty, but Marcus could hear the distant sounds of ship operations. The Zephyrians operated on a different day cycle than humans, and most of the crew would be in their rest period. This gave him a narrow window of opportunity. Moving through the ship's corridors, Marcus felt the familiar calm that came over him before a fight. His breathing remained steady, his movements economical and purposeful. Every step was calculated, every turn anticipated. This was what he had been trained for, even if he had never expected to use these skills in space. The first patrol he encountered consisted of 2 guards making their rounds near the ship's armory. They spotted him immediately. A human in prisoner's clothing should not have been wandering the corridors freely. Before either could raise an alarm, Marcus was among them. The first guard swung an energy baton toward Marcus's head, but the human ducked under the attack and drove his elbow into the alien's ribs. The Zephyrian's armor absorbed some of the impact, but Marcus adjusted instantly, grabbing the guard's weapon arm and delivering a crushing knee strike to his exposed elbow joint. The joint bent in a direction it was never meant to go, and the guard's scream was cut short by a precise chop to his neck. The second guard managed to draw his sidearm, but Marcus closed the distance in 2 quick steps. A sweeping leg kick took the alien's feet out from under him, and before he could hit the ground, Marcus's shin connected with his head in a perfectly timed soccer kick. The guard crumpled without another sound. Marcus dragged both unconscious forms into a nearby maintenance closet and continued toward the detention levels where the other human prisoners were being held. According to the ship's layout, there were at least 12 humans aboard, captured from various outer colonies over the past several months. The detention block's security station was more heavily guarded than the corridors. 4 Zephyrians sat around a central console, monitoring the various cells and detention fields. Behind them, a massive viewport showed the swirling colors of hyperspace as the ship traveled toward its destination. Presumably a Zephyrian interrogation facility, where the human prisoners would be systematically broken. Marcus studied the scene from the shadows, calculating angles and timing. 4 opponents simultaneously was a significant challenge, even for someone with his training. But Muay Thai had taught him that overwhelming odds could be overcome with superior technique and the element of surprise. He picked up a piece of debris from the corridor floor and hurled it down a side passage, creating a distraction. 2 of the guards immediately moved to investigate, reducing the odds to something more manageable. Marcus waited until they were separated from their companions, then struck. The first guard never saw him coming. A flying knee strike caught the Zephyrian in the back of the head, driving him face first into the bulkhead with enough force to dent the metal. The second guard spun around just in time to catch Marcus's heel in his midsection, folding him in half like a closing book. The remaining 2 guards in the security station heard the commotion and rushed out, weapons drawn. Marcus grabbed one of the fallen guards and used him as a shield, absorbing the energy blasts while closing distance. When he was close enough, he shoved the unconscious body at one attacker and engaged the other in close combat. This Zephyrian was better trained than the others, managing to land several glancing blows with his claws. But Marcus's conditioning allowed him to absorb the damage while systematically dismantling his opponent. A series of rapid elbow strikes to the ribs was followed by a devastating uppercut that lifted the alien off his feet. The final guard tried to call for reinforcements, but Marcus silenced him with a spinning back kick that sent him crashing into the security console. Sparks flew as delicate electronics shattered under the impact. Marcus quickly accessed the detention controls, using one of the security cards he had taken earlier. The force fields throughout the detention block flickered and died, freeing the human prisoners. Alarms immediately began blaring throughout the ship as automated systems detected the security breach. The first prisoner to emerge was a woman in her 30s, her clothes torn and her face bearing the marks of interrogation. Behind her came 11 others, all showing signs of torture but still mobile. Their eyes widened when they saw Marcus standing over the unconscious guards. "Who are you?" the woman asked, her voice hoarse but determined. "Marcus Chen, 47th Colonial Defense Corps," he replied, already moving toward the weapons locker. "We're getting out of here, but we need to move fast. They'll have security teams converging on this location in minutes." As if summoned by his words, the sound of running feet echoed through the corridors. Heavy boots and alien voices called out in the Zephyrian language, coordinating search patterns and response teams. The ship's crew had been awakened, and they were not pleased about being robbed of their valuable prisoners. Marcus handed weapons to those prisoners who looked capable of using them, keeping the best for himself. The others he directed toward an escape route he had identified on the ship's layout, a maintenance shaft that led to the shuttle bay. "Stay together, stay quiet, and follow my lead," he instructed. The hunt was about to begin in earnest, and the Zephyrians were about to learn what happened when you underestimated a species that had survived everything Earth could throw at it for millions of years. The maintenance shaft was barely wide enough for a human to crawl through, which made it perfect for their escape. The Zephyrians were larger, bulkier beings who would have difficulty following them through the narrow passages. Marcus led the group of freed prisoners through the ship's mechanical arteries, guided by his memorized layout and the distant hum of the shuttle bay's engines. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew closer. Vextar's voice echoed through the ship's communication system, promising terrible punishment for anyone who aided the escaped prisoners. Emergency lighting bathed everything in angry red, and the ship's automated defenses had sealed most of the primary corridors. "How much further?" whispered Sarah Martinez, the woman who had been the first to emerge from detention. She had identified herself as a former Earth Navy engineer, captured while defending a research station. "2 more levels," Marcus replied quietly. "But we have a problem. The shuttle bay will be heavily guarded now, and we can't fight our way through 100 Zephyrians, even with weapons." As they reached the next junction, Marcus heard something that changed everything. Through the ventilation system came the sound of multiple voices speaking in rapid Zephyrian. But these weren't coordinates or orders. They were reports of casualties. "Serious casualties, sir. Medical teams are reporting 23 crew members unconscious or injured. The security feeds show it was one human, moving with unprecedented speed and precision. Our weapons had no effect, and our armor provided minimal protection against his attacks." Marcus smiled grimly. The Zephyrians were learning that human military training produced something far deadlier than their usual prey. But the real lesson was yet to come. The group emerged from the maintenance shaft into a corridor 1 level above the shuttle bay. Through the grating below, Marcus could see dozens of armed Zephyrians surrounding the hangar, waiting for the humans to appear. Standard tactics would never work against those numbers. "Stay here," Marcus told the others. "I'm going to create a distraction." "You can't fight all of them," Sarah protested. "There are too many." Marcus's expression was calm, almost serene. "I'm not going to fight them. I'm going to teach them something about human warfare." He disappeared back into the maintenance system, moving toward the ship's power distribution center. The Zephyrians had made another critical error. They assumed humans would try to escape immediately. Instead, Marcus was going to use their own ship against them. The power center was lightly guarded, with only 2 technicians monitoring the massive energy conduits that fed the ship's systems. Marcus disabled them quickly and silently, then began systematically overloading specific power nodes, not enough to destroy the ship, but enough to create chaos. Throughout the vessel, lights began flickering, and systems failed randomly. Life support remained stable, but weapons, communications, and transportation systems started going offline in cascade failures. In the darkness and confusion, Marcus moved like a ghost through the ship. He struck at isolated groups of guards, appearing from shadows to deliver devastating combinations before vanishing again. A knee strike here, an elbow there. Each attack precisely calculated to disable, without killing. The Zephyrians began to panic, unused to facing an enemy they couldn't see coming. Vextar himself led a hunting party through the ship's main corridors, his remaining 3 arms carrying the most advanced weapons they possessed. He had underestimated the humans once, and that mistake had cost him nearly a quarter of his crew. Now he was determined to end this humiliation personally. "Show yourself, human," he roared into the darkness. "Face me with honor, instead of skulking in the shadows like a coward." Marcus materialized from an alcove behind the hunting party, moving with the fluid grace that had made him legendary in Bangkok's underground fighting scene. The first guard never knew what hit him, a flying knee strike that lifted him completely off his feet and sent him crashing into his companions. Vextar spun around, bringing his heavy pulse rifle to bear, but Marcus was already inside his reach. An upward elbow strike shattered the weapon, followed by a devastating knee to the Zephyrian's midsection that doubled him over despite his natural armor. "You want to see human honor?" Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight that mattered. "Let me show you what we call the art of 8 limbs." The remaining guards opened fire, but Marcus used Vextar's massive body as cover while systematically destroying the interrogator who had tortured him for days. Every technique was a masterpiece of violence. Elbows that cracked bone, knees that crushed organs, kicks that sent opponents flying across the corridor. Vextar was skilled, dangerous, and desperate. His claws raked across Marcus's arms and torso, drawing blood and leaving painful furrows. But for every wound he inflicted, Marcus delivered 10 times the damage in return. This was the difference between someone who fought for conquest and someone who fought for survival. A spinning heel kick caught Vextar in the head, stunning him long enough for Marcus to grab his skull with both hands. The final knee strike was delivered with all the power and precision that 15 years of training could provide. Vextar's unconscious body hit the deck like a falling tree. The remaining guards fled in terror, spreading word throughout the ship that the human was unstoppable, that their weapons and armor were useless against his strange fighting style. Morale collapsed as reports came in of their most elite warriors being defeated by a single prisoner. Marcus made his way back to the shuttle bay, where the other prisoners waited. The Zephyrian guards had abandoned their posts, too frightened to face the human who had single-handedly brought their mighty warship to its knees. "The shuttle's ready," Sarah reported as Marcus appeared. "How did you do all this?" Marcus began the launch sequence, his hands steady on the controls despite his injuries. "My people have a saying, the weapon that wins the fight is the one your enemy doesn't expect. They thought humans were weak because we don't have natural weapons or armor. They never considered that we might not need them." The shuttle lifted off from the crippled Zephyrian ship, carrying 13 humans toward freedom. Behind them, the Bone Crusher drifted powerless in space, its crew too demoralized and injured to pursue. As they entered the hyperspace corridor toward friendly territory, Sarah looked at Marcus with new respect. "What you did back there. That fighting style. I've never seen anything like it." Marcus smiled, remembering Master Somchai's words from long ago. "It's called Muay Thai, the art of 8 limbs. We use our fists, elbows, knees, and shins as weapons, but the real power comes from here." He tapped his chest. "From the spirit that refuses to surrender." 3 days later, the rescued prisoners arrived at a Colonial Defense Corps station, where their story spread quickly through military channels. Within weeks, every alien species in the galaxy had heard about the human who single-handedly defeated an entire Zephyrian crew using only his hands and feet. The incident marked a turning point in interstellar relations. Species that had viewed humans as easy prey suddenly found themselves reassessing that opinion. Applications for Muay Thai training began appearing from across known space, as other beings realized that perhaps there was something to learn from these strange, soft-skinned creatures from Earth. Marcus returned to his duties as a supply coordinator, but now carried a new unofficial title. Throughout the outer colonies, he was known simply as the Teacher, the human who had shown the galaxy that sometimes the most dangerous weapon was the one that looked completely harmless. The Zephyrians never bothered human colonies again. Some lessons, once learned, were never forgotten. In the quiet moments between his duties, Marcus would practice his forms in the empty cargo holds, his movements flowing like water, precise as clockwork. The art of 8 limbs lived on, carried by a man who understood that true strength came not from size or weapons, but from the indomitable human spirit that refused to break, no matter what the universe threw at it. The galaxy had taunted the wrong species, and now they knew it.